What's up, Ocean? You got Matt here, and welcome to another tier list video. Today we are ranking every single Gen 2 Pokemon in competitive Pokemon. So make sure to leave a like on the video, check out the previous tier list that went up last week, week before that, and make sure to stick around, of course, for, well, the tier list. Let's go ahead and jump on into it. Now, we've done a tier list for Gen 1. Last week we did a tier list for all of Ash's Pokemon competitively, but this time around we are looking at Gen 2. We're looking at Pokemon, tearing them into the amazing, great, solid, below average, bad NFVs, which are bad, not fully evolved Pokemon, and Little Cup Mons. Starting, of course, with it's pretty obvious here. We have the only Pokemon that's gonna, well, no, not the only Pokemon. What am I saying? We have the baby Pokemon of the starters. So we have Chikorita, we've got Cyndaquil, and we've got Totodile. These are all kings in the LC tier. No, they're not kings. They're fine. I think Totodile actually has some utility, but the other two really aren't all that good in the format. Next up is Bayleaf. I think Bayleaf is a bad NFE, and I think that honestly, Meganium is just bad. Meganium is not a great Pokemon. It lacks a lot, in my opinion here. So I'm gonna go ahead and put it in the bad tier. Next up though is going to be the Quilava. Quilava I'll put into the bad NFE, and Typhlosion I'm going to put actually in the below average. I think Typhlosion as a Pokemon has access to Flash Fire, which is great. Its coverage is fine. It's got fire moves and like Earth Power and like extra sensory, and that's really it, to be honest. But it's just a really hard hitter. It's got decent speed at base 100 overall, and the fact that it has Flash Fire as an ability is really nice. Croconaw is a bad NFE, and then for Allocator, I'll put into the solid tier. It might bump up to great here, but I think solid is just fine because this Pokemon does have access to Dragon Dance with Sheer Force. It can boost up and just break teams incredibly well. And I think that in the new games in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, if it returns, we're going to see it do a lot of work in competitive Pokemon singles. Doubles, probably not, but singles for sure. We got Sentret here as an NF, as a Little Cup Mon. We got Furret as just being bad. It's a Furret. We got Hoot as a LC Mon. We have a below average, in my opinion, Noctowl. I think Noctowl, honestly, it's at the top of bad or at the bottom of below average. I'll put it at the top of bad actually for now, because this thing, honestly, having its stat distribution is not great, let's be honest, okay? But it has access to Tinted Lens. Tinted Lens, Hurricanes, and Hyper Voices are really strong. On top of that, it has the ability to put things to sleep with Hypnosis. It's just got decent coverage. It's got ability to nasty plot up. But the main draw really is going to be the Tinted Lens boosted Hurricane. That's really the main aspect with the Pokemon like the Noctowl. Next up is a Lediba as LC. We have a, well, Ledian. This is like, again, terrible. There's so many bad Pokemon released in Gen 2. Like, I don't get why there's so many bad ones sent out. It really is a bit insane to me to think of, but hey, it is what it is. Next up though is going to be Spinarak LC. We have Ariados, which is going to be, I'm going to put it below average. Actually, no, again, put this in bad because it does get webs, but that's really the main draw to it. It has webs, it has toxic spikes. That's really it. And I think that it'll get drafted in Draft League. It'll be used in low tier, and it'll be, I guess, probably seeing some play in doubles if it has access to the webs, if webs are needed. That's really the main draw for it. Crobat is great. I think Crobat's such an amazing Pokemon. Having access to 130 base speed, a fighting resist that is 4 times fighting resist is amazing as well. It's got great coverage options. It can be physical or special, can be bulky with like a fat bat set, can be a great defogger, great pivot. It is a lot for a team, and I really appreciate heavy duty boots coming out. I like Crobat a lot. Next up is going to be the Chinchou, which will be honestly at the top of LC Mons. Actually, you know what? I'll put it into bad NFVs actually, because this Pokemon here, it is an LC Mon, but it's like one of the best Little Cup Mons out there. I'll definitely put it over here in bad NFVs, while Lantern will go into the below average category. It is just a solid Pokemon for what it does, but is it a solid Pokemon overall? No, it's a potential water immunity, it's a potential electric immunity. It just provides a decent amount for a team, but I think its stat distribution, the fact that it's got really high HP but then really pitiful stats everywhere else, is not that appealing in my eyes. So we're going to put it over here in the below average tier. Next up is Pichu, followed by Spiky-eared Pichu. You can go over here in the low tier. Oh, what's that? We also have a Cleffa, an Igglybuff, a Togepi, and then a Togetic. Togetic I'm going to put into bad. Okay, Togetic being bad, it makes sense in my eyes. It's a fine Pokemon to have. It's just what it does for a team is really one-dimensional in my eyes. It's bulky, it sits in front of a team. In doubles, it's great. In doubles, it's like, I'll put it below average, I think, in doubles. But still, having access to Follow Me for doubles is great. Having access to Tailwind as well. Having access to, then a Violet is a bulky Pokemon that can just roost up on things and click a defog and just be annoying is really nice. But my god, Togetic evolving to Togekiss is an infinite improvement. My god, such a difference in a Pokemon right there. Next up is going to be the Natu. Natu will go into the LC Mons, followed by the Xatu, which will go into the, I'll put it into below average, I think. Xatu, excuse me, has a really good usefulness when it comes to magic bounce. Of course, it can set up really freely on a lot of different things. It doesn't have to worry about getting toxic or burnt or anything like that. It gets cosmic power as well. It gets roost. It gets the ability to set up. It gets the ability to support. I like it a lot for what it can provide to a team. I've used it in the past before in competitive Pokemon, and I've enjoyed it. I think it just also provides a really good typing with really good coverage options as well. Next up is Mareep in the LC Mons. Flappy is a bad NFE, and Ampharos is going to be here in the below average. But Mega Ampharos, I'll put up here into great. I think Mega Ampharos is super underrated as a Mega Pokemon, having the ability to just really break through basically anything. Having Mold Breaker is amazing for something that would be immune to electric type attacks, like, I don't know, an Electivire that's running Motor Drive or something. Basically, passing through that is really useful. The only downside to Ampharos and Mega Ampharos is that their coverage is not that great. Having Stab Dragon Pulse, though, is really nice. I wish you got Stab Draco Meteor, though. Either way, really solid Pokemon. Is a bulky pivot. I know like the Cotton Guard rest sets are really solid. Rest Leaf Talk with Volt Switch is really cool as well. And then just a generic bulky set that's meant to be offensive can do a lot of work too. Big fan of Mega Ampharos, a lot more than many of the other Mega Pokemon that are around. Next up is going to be Blossom here. So I'm actually just going to readjust this. Let's going to shrink it just a little bit. That should be a bit better so we can see a bit more. So we're going to go ahead with this. Next up, like I said, Blossom. Blossom is going to be in the below average tier. I think Blossom, the reason why it's above something like Noctowl, or something, I'll put Noctowl actually above. I think Noctowl is a bit better than Ampharos is. But I think the reason why Blossom is here in the below average tier is because it actually gets Quiver Dance, and it gets access to Sleep Powder, and I believe it gets access to Strength Sap too. So that's 3 amazing moves that are really good utility moves that not many Pokemon get and can just change the outcome of a game pretty quickly. Really, really solid here with the Blossom. Next up is going to be Meryl in the LC. Azumarill. This is going to be our first Pokemon I think that's going to go into the amazing tier. I'll be honest, looking at what we got going on in Gen 2, there's not much that would qualify for the amazing tier, but I do feel like I have to kind of say that it is a really amazing Pokemon. Having Azu around to Belly Drum and click Aqua Jet, or Belly Drum and click Liquidation, Play Rough, Knockoff. Having a Bandit set is really good. If you want to run a set that's like the Sap Sipper set, you can definitely do so, and it makes a lot of sense as well. Having the ability to run a Salt Vest, a Trapping set, there's a lot of utility that you can do with something like not Blossom, like the Azumarill. Next up is going to be Sudowoodo, which is going to be in the bad tier, followed by our Resident Politoed, which I'm going to put into solid here. I like Politoed for what it does. Giving it a rain setter is really cool. Having access to that is nice, of course, but also having Perish Song and Whirlpool, again, another trapping set, which is really unique. It's a Pokemon that gets Fake Out. It's a Pokemon that in doubles, I think, is actually even better than it is in singles, because in singles, obviously, Pelipper is the premier rain user of choice, or rain setter of choice, rather, but Politoed definitely does a bit of something extra, which is, again, really useful, having a little bit few extra moves, even though its typing is, in my opinion, not as good as something like Pelipper's. Moving on, though, is going to be Hoppip and Skiploom, which are going to go respectively into the LC and the bad NFEs, followed by the Jumpluff, which is going to go into the bad tier. Jumpluff just is... honestly, it's not great. Its typing kind of sucks. Its coverage is terrible. Really, the only redeeming quality is like Leech Seed. I guess Acrobatics, I guess, but like really, there's no good set to run on a Jumpluff consistently. I'm just not a fan of Jumpluff as a Pokemon. Hopefully, it gets to stay in the sun at some point, but it's going to need a big time nerf or some big, sorry, not nerf, but big time buff, or some just new moves on this thing, that's for sure. Apom can go smack into the LC Mon. Same thing with Sunkern, just all the way at the bottom. What is it? 40 base stats all around, 30 base stats all around, something like that. Crazy. Sunflora here, I'll put into the bad category as well. There's so many bad Pokemon here. Yeah, it gets access to Chlorophyll and can just break through teams. But why was this thing not Fire and Grass? If it was Fire and Grass, I think it'd be much higher. Been used a lot for a really unique typing, but hey, it isn't. Next up is going to be Yanma. Yanma's going to actually go into the bad NFEs here because, I mean, obviously there's Yanmega, but I believe in LC it's actually banned. It's such a fantastic Pokemon in Little Cup that actually is banned in Little Cup, if I'm not mistaken. Next up is Wooper. Wooper in LC is really cool here. It's again a water and ground type is awesome. Having access to Water Absorb and Unaware is really cool as well. Then is going to be the Quagsire. Quagsire I'll put right up. I think Quagsire actually is better than Lancer in my eyes. I mean, it's really a coin toss depending on what you need, but I love them both. They're both really, really solid. Quagsire, again, Unaware, great. Amazing ability to have access to when you're looking at both singles and doubles, but also really good in different formats, like in Uber's formats, which is really nice too. A great typing, having only one weakness is really nice. You can build around that weakness really, really easy because there are so many Pokemon that just 4 times resist grass. So I feel really good about the weaknesses with Quagsire. Just wish you got access to rocks. Next up is going to be Espeon and Umbreon. Espeon we'll put into the solid tier, and Umbreon I'll put I really want to put it below average. I don't like Umbreon at all, but I'll put it into solid here. I think Espeon as a Pokemon, being fast, being great coverage options is really nice. Magic Bounce, again, really solid as well. The Frailty is not that big of a deal, I find, because you can invest a lot in bulk and still hit really hard here. Then you have something like Umbreon, which is basically just there to sponge a hit and click like Baton Pass and get the hell out of dodge. Maybe click Foul Play or Payback, or that's really it. I just don't like Umbreon. I know it gets Snarl, so in doubles it could have some utility. Issue is its ability is just like, it's so bad compared to Magic Bounce. Magic Bounce is one of the best abilities in the game. I think a Synchronize, which is just like, it's fine. That's really it. It's not great. Next up is Murkrow, which again, I believe is way too good for Little Cup. I'll put up here in the bad NFVs, followed by Slowking, which I think is great. Slowking is a fantastic Pokemon, having arguably the best ability in Pokemon in Regenerator, having the ability to Dragon Tail things out, having the ability to have, well, again, amazing coverage. It's a Gen 1 Pokemon coming from a Gen 1 evolution. It has great coverage, has great stats, has Regenerator, has great typing. It can do a lot for a team. I think it's so underrated as a Pokemon overall. I love Slowking. Misdreavus, I'll put into the bad, or the Little Cup Pokemon here. Unknown will go into the bad. And then we have Wobbuffet, which I'm also going to put into bad. Now, Wobbuffet, even though I put into bad here, I think that what it allows a team to do, what it forces, especially in something like Draft League, is it forces prep. And if you're going to get like a 1-point Wobbuffet or a tier 5 Wobbuffet, I think it's not a terrible idea if your team could afford to pick it up. Not everyone can though, and everyone can use it well. Versus in something like Doubles, I believe Doubles has Shadow Tag banned, if I'm not mistaken. Either way, Wobbuffet would not do that good in my mind. I think there's other options for it. But then you have something like in a competitive sense, like what is it called? Smogon, where Smogon would use this mostly in Ubers or anything goes, because in something like OU or UU, Shadow Tag is banned. So it has to run just like, well, I don't think it gets another ability, so I guess it is banned there. Either way, it doesn't do enough, and it forces attacks, which is cool, I guess. You have to be prepared for it, but it's just like a 1-for-1 trade basically every single time, which is, I mean, that's fine. That's fine. Next up is Giraffe Rig. Ooh, Farigiraf coming in. The next evolution we're going to see. I think that this Pokemon is bad. It just is. I mean, I want to put it in bad NFVs because I think I should now, but I'll put it, you know what? I'll just put it in bad. We'll put it in bad for now and stick with that for the time being. And if we make an adjustment later on, we'll make an adjustment later on. Next up, though, we're going to see is the Pinecone. Pinecone will be into the Little Cup Pokemon. Fortress is solid overall. Again, Volt Switch, whoops, let's make this adjustment there. Fortress has access to Volt Switch, has access to Counter, has access to Sturdy, has access to Rapid Spin, Spikes, Stealth Rocks, Toxic Spikes. It gets a lot of utility and can be really solid for a team in certain situations. Dunsparce, you're going to be in the bad category. Shame you didn't get an evolution there, buddy. Then we have Gligar, which Gligar I'm actually going to put in below average. This is the first NFV Pokemon I'm putting in below average. It is just great. Look, Gligar, it has very little utility because it doesn't hit very hard, but it has access to Knockoff, it has access to U-Turn, it has access to Roost, it can defog things away, it can't be toxic. All the things are really good. It holds in a Violite. It's got a really pretty bad weakness to Ice types, but at the end of the day, this Pokemon, compared to everything else in the bad tier, I would definitely rather have Gligar than everything else in the bad tier. And honestly, I'd rather have Gligar probably above, like this, I'd say. This is where I'd have Gligar. Yeah, really good Pokemon. Next up is going to be the Steelix. Steelix has so much utility. I'm going to put it into the solid tier. I think it's actually a little bit underrated as a ground type. Having access to the steel typing is really nice, so it's not weak to ice. Obviously, you don't want your steel type being neutral to ice. You want it to be a resist, but at the end of the day, Steelix does provide a lot of really good offensive firepower with its Sheer Force ability and really good coverage options. Gyro Ball and Heavy Snipe have like a truck on this Pokemon. Rocks are great. It just does a lot of utility for a team. And next up is going to be Mega Steelix, which I wish its item was a bit better. I'm going to put it into solid as well. I think it's just, I wish its ability was better. That's it. If its ability was better, I mean, like, what could you do? If this ability was just anything more usable than what it has right now, I think it'd just be a lot better. I think it's what, Sand Force, if I'm not mistaken, as the ability on the on Mega Steelix, which is just, it's surprising me so much. Mega Steelix, if I can take a look here, yeah, it's Sand Force. It's like, if it had Sheer Force still, if it had Rock Head, if it had Sturdy, any of these abilities still, that'd be great, but no, Sand Force. Sand Force. Okay, cool. Next up, though, we're going to see the Snubbull, LC Mon, then followed by the Granbull, which will be below average. Granbull, as a fairy type, is cool. Having access to Intimidate, also cool. Being a solid fighting type check with Intimidate is really nice as well. But having the great coverage it has is more important in my eyes, and also has Heal Bell, which is really cool as well. AV Granbull is a really fun set to run in lower tiers in previous formats, so I do think that Granbull deserves its time in the sun in the below average tier. Next up is Quillfish. I love me some Quillfish. I think Quillfish is just, it's solid. It's such a solid Pokemon overall. I can't put it in the great tier, but it's just, Quillfish can just, Quillfish has access to Intimidate. It has access to Spikes and Toxic Spikes. It can Thunder Wave things. It's got great speed for Taunt. It's got access to Swift Sim as well, to be a great Rain Sweeper. Has access to Destiny Bond in a worst case scenario. I think Quillfish just has a lot going for it that people just underestimate a lot. Now look, is it better than Feraligatr? Probably not. And you know what? I'll put Feraligatr up here in the great tier, but I do think that Quillfish is really solid and is super underrated in Pokemon. Next up is Scizor, another Pokemon joining the amazing tier, and this is the best Pokemon we've seen so far. Scizor having one weakness to fire, which can be easily patched up, whether it's a rain team or whether it's a team that is able to easily handle fire type Pokemon, something like a Flash Firemon. It's just solid. Again, I say solid, but it's amazing. It's an amazing Pokemon. My tiers are all kind of jacked up because we're looking at it in comparison to Gen 2 Pokemon, which are, again, overall pretty bad, but having Knockoff is great. Having U-Turn, having Bullet Punch, having access to Swords Dance, Defog, and Roost, all these different things allow Scizor to do so much for a team. It also gets Counter, and Counter is a really solid move to have on Pokemon like Scizor with its defensive typing. And it's got great stats all around as well. I love me some Scizor, one of my favorite Pokemon to use in this past generation. Next up is Mega Scizor, which is even better than Scizor. If you're playing in something like a National Dex League and you have access to Megas on Showdown, then it'd be such a fun Pokemon to use. Having access to Mega Scizor in previous generations, also really good to use. Arguably better than regular Scizor in that gen because the items that were around, I mean, you don't have access to Boots, which is like fine, but the boost in attack and the boost in defense is much more appreciated, I think, than something like a Leftovers or even an Ockerberry in most cases. I do like Mega Scizor a lot. Next up is going to be Shuckle, which is going to be, in my eyes, I'll put it in bad because it does have some utility, but it's just so specific. Do you really need webs? Do you want to run like the Infestation, Contrary Shell Smash set with like Toxic and Rest? Is that what you want to do? Probably not, but it's a set nonetheless, and if your opponent's not expecting it, you can really catch them off guard. Heracross is up next. Heracross is going to be in the great tier, but Heracross around this range. It gets spikes now. We're like 3 years in to Gen 8, and it gets spikes. Yeah, Heracross gets spikes. It also is a great status absorber with Guts. It's a great sweeper with Scarf Moxie. It can do a lot for a team like that, but it's a fantastic breaker. No matter which way you cut it, I really like Heracross a lot. It's a great Pokemon. Next up is Mega Heracross, which I think, unironically, I think it's worse. Reason being is because while it does get access to all these same moves, it doesn't get access to Guts anymore, which means that you can just Will-O-Wisp it and really cause it some problems. It's also slower. I believe it's base 75 compared to Heracross's base 85, which in my mind is not an improvement. It is much bulkier, and Skill Link allows you to run a wider array of moves like Bullet Seed and Rock Blast and something like that, and Pin Missile, so you don't have to be worry about the 85% accuracy on Mega Horn. I just think that there are different things they could have done. I wish they would have made it faster, and then that would have been a bit more advantageous to me. I wish it would have kept Guts in my mind. I think Guts is a lot better than having Skill Link. Even if you want to keep Skill Link, make it faster. That was the main issue that I had. And here we are still, 6-7 years later, 8 years later, since Mega Evolutions were released, and I'm still kind of like, about it. Next up is going to be the Sneasel. Sneasel is below average, but I'd honestly have it at the top of below average. I think Sneasel having great speed at 115, having great typing and great stab options is really nice. Having access to stab knockoff is huge. Priority Ice Shard is awesome. There's a lot of really cool things that it can do. It's really one-dimensional, but it just does its job so well. The only issue is sometimes it hits really weakly, and I wish it hit harder sometimes, but it's got like 90 base attack, and with the evolution that it has to Sneasler and with having access to Weavile, obviously that's really cool in certain situations. Next up, Teddiursa, Elcemon, followed by Ursaring, which is going to be below average. I think Ursaring is just, it hits like an absolute truck sometimes. My God, and I cannot wait to use Ursaluna when it comes to like a competitive Pokemon game. That's going to be really exciting for me. But Ursaring is just, I'll put it over here in below average. Next up is Slugma over here. Macargo, where's Macargo? There you go, Macargo. You can go to just the bad tier. You're just a bad Pokemon. Also, Swinub. I used Swinub in the in LC leagues before. I had a really good time with Swinub. I think it's a really fun Pokemon to use. It's got access to like Icicle Spear and stuff like that, which is nice for a little cup, but it's just a solid Pokemon overall with really good offensive typing. Next up is going to be the Piloswine. Piloswine, in my opinion, is solid. Actually, I'd rather have Piloswine like this, I'd say, because Piloswine is just, it hits hard, it's got thick fat, it's got the Eviolite, it can do a lot of really good things for a team. I like Piloswine a lot. And also, I believe it's knockoff as well, if I'm not mistaken. I should double check on that. But either way, Piloswine just does a lot of good things for a team that most teams really don't realize how good Piloswine is, how physically defensive it can actually be, which is one of my favorite things about it. And no, it does not get knockoff. Mamoswine does get knockoff though. But at the end of the day, having Rocks, having Earthquake, having great coverage, ice coverage is really nice on a Pokemon as bulky as Piloswine. Next up is Corsola. This one does get access to regen, but goodbye, into the bad tier you go. Here's Galarian Corsola. You're going to go into the below average tier. I'll actually put you, I think I put it like this. I'd rather have Zapdos than Galar Corsola. It's too passive in my mind, but having Strength Sap is nice. Having access to Nightshade is cool and everything, but I'd rather have other Pokemon on my team than Galar Corsola. Next up is Remoraid into the LC. Octillery. I know people are going to kill me for this, but it's a bad Pokemon. Yeah, Snipe Shot's a thing. Yeah, its coverage is dope. I wish it got something like Mega Launcher. I think Mega Launcher on Octillery would be so incredible. Having access to all these pulse moves that it gets would be amazing. It's like one of the few water types that gets fire moves, like Flamethrower. That's crazy to think. Delibird. Oh, you're just bad. You're just bad. Mantine. You're below average. You're below average. I want to put you in bad, but you're below average. I think Mantine it's so frail on the physical side in my mind. It's so passive in a lot of situations as well. It wants to defog, it wants to run Toxic because the best way it can do things, do damage to things. It wants to run access to Air Slash, wants to run Haze, it wants to run Roost. It just doesn't have the ability to run everything it wants to. But it does get Swift Swim and does get ability to run something like Water Absorb to be immune to water type attacks, which has its usefulness. Skarmory, I want to put Skarmory in great, but based on this like whole tier list, I feel like it should be an amazing. But you know what? No, I would rather have Slowking over Skarmory. So I'll put it like this. I think Skarmory, providing the great typing of Steel and Flying, is awesome. The only thing I have an issue with this Pokemon is it doesn't get access to U-Turn. I wish this thing got something like U-Turn, like Corviknight. But we're getting to that point with these Flying and Steel types, where like they're either going to be offensive or like a mixed offensive thing like Celesteela, or they're going to be very defensive like Skarmory and Corviknight, or they're going to have access to hazards like Skarmory but not like Corviknight, and Celesteela are going to have U-Turn like Corviknight but not like Skarmory and Celesteela, which is, again, I want to have access to it all on a Pokemon, and I don't have that with Skarmory at all, which is one of the reasons I don't like it. It's also, in my eyes, pretty passive, even though Body Press does do some good things for it in the metagame. Next up is going to be Houndour, again, LCmon, Houndoom. Houndoom is below average. Another Flash Fire Pokemon, which is nice. It's got decent speed. I believe it's like 105 speed or something like that. Good typing, again, like I said, and really solid coverage with like Sludge Bomb to hit the fairy types, which is nice. But I think that Mega Houndoom with Solar Power in the sun, oh my god, it can hit like an absolute truck. And it's also insanely fast. I think it's like 115 speed, which is really good. I think it's like the second fastest Pokemon on my great tier list. Yeah, second fastest on the great tier list. It's really cool. I'd actually rather have it over the Mega Ampharos and I think over the Mega Heracross. But I really like Mega Houndoom, my favorite Pokemon in competitive Pokemon, and just in Pokemon in general. I like it a lot. Next up is going to be Kingdra. Kingdra is a great Pokemon. Kingdra having access to both Sniper and Swift Swim allows it to do two really different sets. Either the Crit set, which you have to be prepared for with something like Pokemon that can't be crits, or you have to be ready for hazing things or for Dragon Tailing things out, which are really annoying. Or the Rain set, which is just, again, terrifying as well. If you manage to pair the thing with a Politoed, you can just slip turn around until you get into a situation where you click the Hydro Pump, or you click the Draco Meteor, or you click the Flash Cannon if it's against a fairy type. I don't know. You have options, really. It's just, those are the main things to run with Kingdra. I just wish its stat distribution was a bit better. It's like, I think it's like, what, a 95 attack, defense, special attack, special defense, and 85 speed, something like that. I wish it was just a bit better, a bit more oomph to it in my mind. But hey, it is what it is. Kingdra is just one of the coolest design Pokemon. Funny story, actually, before I created the MattOshea YouTube channel, I made a channel called Doc Kingdra, and it did not have any videos go up. I couldn't think of a name for my channel, and I decided I'm happy to go with MattOshea instead. But here we go. Here we are, Kingdra, one of my favorite Pokemon of all time. Next up, Phanpy. You're adorable, but you are definitely a little come on. Donphan. I miss Donphan so much. I think Donphan is great. I think Donphan is great. It's an awesome Pokemon, but I realize its weaknesses. It is 50 base speed. It's got really bad SpDef. Its ability, not always really useful in certain situations. I wish it had a better ability most of the time. I believe its abilities are like Battle Armor, if I'm not mistaken. I'm just gonna double check on that. Its abilities, it has Sturdy, which can be kind of useful, and Sandveil. Battle Armor is a completely, I'm thinking of a ROM hack, geez. But Sturdy as its ability, it just doesn't always get down to Sturdy unless you're running something, bringing at something that has like a mold breaker ice move like a Kyurem or something, a Kyurem Black specifically, but you're not going to get in that situation often. Its coverage is great though, having access to like Seed Bomb and Play Rough and Knockoff, Earthquake, Priority Ice Shard obviously is amazing. The fact that it's Priority Ice Shard is so big for it. Rapid Spin and Rocks, really nice as well. I love me some Donphan. Next up is Porygon 2, which I'm going to put into the great tier as well. I'll pop this up here, I think. I'll pop this up here. I think I'll do something like this, actually. I like Porygon 2 a lot. I think Porygon 2 has a Trick Room setter. In doubles, pop it in. You know what? I'm going to put into amazing because we're looking at doubles as well here. We're talking about both of them. But I think having Porygon 2 with the ability to run Trick Room, the ability to run teleport in singles, the ability to be able to just break through many different things because it's got really solid offensive stats rather, and a really solid coverage move pool. It's really nice, I think, especially because it gets to run a Violet as well. I think as far as bad NFEs go, these can all look at Porygon and be like, okay, Porygon did it right. Yeah. Next up, Stantler. Oh, man, Stantler is just bad. Stantler's just bad, man. It needs to be better. Smeargle in doubles, I guess you can do some work if you're running some wacky sets, and same thing with like anything goes, but it's just, it relies a lot on like Baton Pass, which is not always legal. Tyrogue, you can go into LC. Hitmontop. Hitmontop is solid, I think. It just providing the ability to break through things it had with Technician or having Intimidate is really nice. It's got two really good abilities. Having access to Rapid Spin is great. It's got decent coverage options. Triple Axle, Close Combat, Earthquake, Fake Out as well. All really solid here. I think that it shows why it's just a good Pokemon, a solid Pokemon overall. Next up, Smoochum, LC, Elekid, LC, Magby, LC, Miltank up over here in the, I put you in a below average tier. Below average because yes, you get access to Milk Drink, and you get Stealth Rock, and you get access to good coverage options, and you get 3 really good abilities. Scrappy to be immune to Intimidate. You get access to Thick Fat to reduce the damage from fire and ice type attacks. You get access to Sap Spray to boost your attack and give you an immunity as well. All really good, but it's just underwhelming. That's the main thing. Miltank is just a little underwhelming. Next up is Blissey, which in certain situations in like Ubers, it's amazing, but in something like other leagues, other situations, other metagames, it's just solid. I think it's just a little passive in certain situations. If you're playing something like Draft League where you know what Pokemon your opponent can bring, you can easily prep around Pokemon like Blissey and Chansey. That's why I have it over here in the solid tier. Next up, we're going to see the Raikou, finally some legendaries and pseudos. Next up, we have the Raikou. Like I said, Raikou's going to go up into the, I'll put it into amazing. I think Raikou offers really, really good options. It's got great coverage now. The fact that it's one of the few electric types that since the removal of Hidden Power Ice, or Hidden Power in general rather, it hasn't been as affected by, because it has access to Scald now. The fact that Raikou gets Scald is crazy. Why does this thing get Scald? It makes no sense, but hey, it does. It gets access to Aura Sphere, Extra Sensory, gets access to Thunderbolt now, Calm Mind. It's one of the best sub-toxic Pokemon out there. If you know, you know. And if you know, make sure to comment it down below as well. But I think that Raikou is just super, super cool, awesome Pokemon. Next up is Entei. Entei is going to go into the great tier, I think, but at the bottom. The fact that it doesn't have to run a Jolly Nature, or an Adam Nature rather, now to run Sacred Fire or Extreme Speed is really good. The fact that it gets access to Sacred Fire is really cool. The fact that it gets access to decent coverage options is nice as well. The only issue is, why does this thing not get access to Earthquake? I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't get it at all. Ooh, been yawning a little bit. I do not get why it doesn't get access to Earthquake. Next up though is going to be Suicune, which we're going to put over here in the amazing tier. I think Suicune, in comparison, do I want to put it there? I don't think I do. I think I'm going to put it below, because I think Slowking is better. I think Slowking is better. So Slowking having access to Regenerator is much more advantageous than Suicune having access to Pressure. You can definitely pressure stall things out, and there are certain situations where if your opponent is not ready for a Suicune, they could just lose outright because of Pressure, because of Vincoon, because of Crocoon, tons of different sets, having Rest, Talk, Calm Mind, Scald, having access to Rest, Protect, or what is it called? Protect, Leftovers. Suicune is also really, Sub-Protect Leftovers Suicune, that's what I'm talking about, is really good as well. You can just stall things out really easily with Suicune. That's what it does. It's the absolute best. Probably more than most other Pokemon in competitive Pokemon. Next up is going to be Larvitar in the LC, Pupitar in the bad NFEs. T-Tar is amazing. T-Tar is, I'll put it actually up here like this. I think T-Tar is just what it provides for a team. Sand, really good for Pokemon in a sand team like Excadrill or like a Stoutland, I guess. Having access to a dark type is amazing. It's one of the few Pokemon on this list that can do basically anything. It can be physically offensive, specially offensive. It can be a Step Sweeper with speed. It can be a Step Sweeper with attack. It can be a bulky defensive Pokemon on the physical or the special side, depending on what your opponent has. It can be, or what you're worried about, really. I think that T-Tar, the fact that a lot of times we'll see like really insane Psychic or Ghost or Dark type Pokemon or Fire types get released, and then T-Tar just shuts them down. This was the answer to Naganadel. This was the answer to Blacephalon when they came out, and it's done an amazing job. This has been the answer for Latios and Latias since they came out, and it's still doing an amazing job of that. T-Tar is just never going to fall out of favor in the metagame, even though it is not my absolute favorite thing out there. Next up, Mega T-Tar. Also, Mega T-Tar I think is worse. I'm still going to put it into the amazing tier because it is really good. The issue that I have with T-Tar and compared to Mega T-Tar is Mega T-Tar can't hold an item. That's what I don't like about it, but it still has all those same things going for it and can be a really good Pokemon. If you set up a Dragon Nest with this thing, my god, it is just crazy how strong this thing can get. Yeah, that's it. Next up is going to be Lugia, which let's put at the top here. Let's put Ho-Oh at the top over here. Let's put Celebi over here in my opinion, solid tier. I'll put it like this. Now let's talk about it. Ho-Oh and Lugia. Ho-Oh has Regenerator. Obviously amazingly good. Let's make a quick little adjustment here. We're gonna go purple tier. We're gonna add this row above, and let's make some quick corrections. Put this back to red, and let's put this as being the purple category. So this is going to be Legends only. All right, so we're gonna go over here like this. I think that Ho-Oh is better than Lugia. Ho-Oh provides a Regenerator now, which is amazing. Ho-Oh provides amazing options for physical stab, both, not just physical, it does great special stab as well. It also has really good access to good coverage with like Earthquake and rock moves, has access to Giga Drain as well, which I didn't know until recently, but it can do so much for its team because it can just come in and do whatever it wants because it has Regenerator. And if you have boots up, then you have to worry about rocks, which is great. Then you have something like Lugia, which is like on the other side. While Ho can come in a bunch of times, Lugia is more so like, I'm going to come in, I'm going to try and break immediately or set up immediately because I have access to multi-skill. I can sub up, and I can be annoying, and I can roost, and I can stall things out. There's a lot of things that Lugia can do. I like both these Pokemon a lot. I've had the chance to use them both. I think they're both absolutely fantastic. I love me some Choice Banded Ho. And Lugia, setup Lugia is great. The fact that it's 110 speed is one of the reasons why it's so crazy. If it had like 90 speed and put that 20 extra, if it got like 90 speed and extra 10 in all of its stats, I think it still wouldn't be as good as if the original Lugia with 110 base speed. I think it's that good, the fact that it has that speed. Next up though, we'll talk about the Celebi, which is over here. Celebi above the Piloswine. It gets rocks. It's a decent typing. The issue is it's 4 times with the U-turn. The U-turn is such a common thing in the metagame right now. Just switching out over and over is a big deal. It's a great ground resist. It gets access to decent coverage and Earth Power, Ancient Power, Dazzling Gleam, Psychic moves, and Grass moves. In fact, it gets Knockoff too is nice, but I just don't find it to be that imposing, and I find most of the time I'm up against a Celebi, I just don't feel worried at all. So that's where I'm going to put Celebi. This is my tier list, guys. Let me know what you guys think about it down in the comments below. Make sure to leave a like on the video, of course. What do you think that I did right? What do you think that I did wrong? If you guys are unsure about something, let me know as well. I'll be happy to add to some things in the comments down below as well. And I'll be back again for a Gen 3 tier list. Maybe next week, maybe not next week, but we'll see, guys. Thanks for watching the tier list, and I will see you guys all next time.